All right, so how many of you guys are on Instagram? How many of you guys are on Instagram? How many of you guys are on, keep your hand up, any other social media site? So Snapchat, Facebook, Twitter, anything? Okay. All right, so all of us, most of all of us, are on some kind of social media. And I don't know about you guys, but sometimes, like I get lost in that scroll, like whenever you're on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or Snapchat, you scroll through and you're just looking at all the different things. And I get a little bit envious. Recently, actually in my life, all of my friends seem to be buying houses. It's like the thing to do apparently at my age. Buy a house. Who knew? We're nowhere near that time. So it's not going to be us. I've gotten this feeling where should I be buying a house? Should I really want to buy a house? Or there's some friends who have timeshares at Disney, and I'm like, that would be awesome, right? Wouldn't that be awesome? Have a timeshare at Disney so you can go to Disney. Timeshare is where you get to share time with something. I don't know.
It's like owning a condo.
Yeah. So you get to go to Disney for cheaper. That's pretty much all it is. For a timeshare with Disney. So I don't know about you guys, if you've ever felt like that feeling where you're a little bit envious of someone, like that they have something better than you. But most of the things that I see and we see on social media, don't know if you guys know this, but they aren't real life. Like, if we look at people's things that they post on social media, it's their highlight reel. It's like their best of the best. You don't see people posting their ugly selfies, right? No. You don't see the weird dirty bedroom pictures, right? No, you see the cleaned up bedroom. You see all these different things. But even though social media shows us only the best of the best, we still has a way of making us feel like we're envious of them. Like we wish we were them. Like we wish we had what they had and stuff like that. And it makes us feel like we're missing out on something, right? Sometimes, right? But maybe for you, it's that material possession, like the brand new shoes or a new iPhone, and you really want that thing. And you see your friends posting about it all the time. You see someone else has it, and it makes you crazy because you want it. Maybe for you, you don't struggle with that. Maybe you struggle with the fact that it's a relationship thing. Like you want a boyfriend or a girlfriend, or you want a relationship with a parent or a sibling, and you see someone else has a better one than you do, or at least social media shows us that, and we think that that's what we want in our lives, and we envy them for that. Maybe for you guys, it's money. You see your friends are going on these awesome vacations, or they're buying these expensive clothes, or they're living up the life and the luxury. And you wish that your family just had the funds to do it sometimes. No matter what it is in your life, what you feel like you're missing, my point is this. It's hard not to notice all the things you don't have. I'm going to say it again. It's hard not to notice all the things that you don't have. But the problem just doesn't stop here. You see, once you've noticed the things that you don't have, we sometimes start to obsess over those things, right? We think about them over and over and over and over again until we kind of obsess over those things, and it shifts these things inside of our mind. And we get to this point where we just stop thinking that we want things and that we don't have, and we start thinking that we deserve those things that we don't have. There's a word that people use for that mindset that shifts from thinking that we want these things to that we deserve these things, and it's this word called entitlement. Have you guys heard of that word? Heard entitlement? Yes? No? Yes? Okay, entitlement is that shift in our lives that happens from the want to the deserve. It teaches your brain to think things like, it's not fair. I should get that awesome vacation like that too. Or, he doesn't work nearly as hard as I do. I deserve his spot on the team. Or, it's even this, I do stuff around the house. I should get a bigger allowance. We all think these things, and our minds shift to this point, that we deserve these things. And that's a big problem. Why? Because when we start believing that we're entitled to these things that we don't have, it makes it more difficult to realize the things that we do have. And it makes it more difficult for us to value the things that we do have in our lives. It keeps us focused on what we think that we're owed in our lives, because we think we did so good that we're owed these things. And it shifts our minds that we're entitled to these things. So what do we do about it? If we don't want to live our lives this way, focus on the things that we don't have, how do we fix that? What do we do to change our mindset from that? Last time we were together, last week, we said that the Bible has a lot to say about money. And it has a lot to say about wealth. And you can bet that the Bible has a lot to say about entitlement too, right? There were so many people back then that thought they deserved so much more. They thought that they were so much better, and so they deserved so much more in their lives. And the verse we're going to look at today were written to the group of people called the Jews. The Jews were very entitled in their lives. We're going to look at a passage in the book of Hebrews, and these Hebrew Christians were Christians who had grown up as Jews their entire life. And because they had grown up as Jews their entire life, they knew that the Savior was going to come through the Jewish people. And so eventually one day, a Jew lives a perfect life through his son, through God's Son, and his name is Jesus. And talk about a special life. A Jew, he deserved it. He deserved everything. Jesus' life, death, and resurrection, when he died and came back to life, changed everything for people back then. It should change everything for you guys too. They threw out all of those old rules that they had in their life. All those old Jewish rules they had to follow. But as you can probably imagine, the Jewish people in his day struggled with the idea of throwing out the old and dealing with just the new. They were having a hard time adjusting to this new way of life, this new way of life that Jesus showed them how to do. And so the writer of Hebrews sat down and wrote a letter to these Jewish Christians and told them what they're supposed to do. And so here we are in Hebrews 13, verse 5, it says, "Don't be obsessed with getting more material things. Be relaxed with what you have." This is part of the Message translation. And so basically, the writer of this passage is saying, stop worrying about everybody else's stuff. Stop worrying about all the other stuff in the world. Stop focusing on what you don't have and what you think you have, and instead, rest easy and be happy with what you do have. Why do you think the author of Hebrews brought this up? Why did he include this in his letter? Well, I think it's because the author knew what we needed to know, and he knew that they needed to know this as well. That entitlement is this ugly feeling that has this moment whenever it's going to pop up in our lives. Jesus came in to bring this new, better way of living for us, our lives. But the writer of Hebrews didn't want the Jewish people back then and us now to miss that, because we thought we needed more, because we were entitled to more. Entitlement causes us to miss what we do have by keeping our eyes focused on what we don't have. It was true back then to the Hebrew people, and it's true now to us. So at this point, you're thinking, that's great, everything, but how do we do it? How do we do this about it? How do we go about doing this? How do we stop feeling entitlement from creeping in our lives? Here's where the second part of this verse comes in handy. It says, "Since God assured us, I'll never let you down, never walk off and leave you." So how do we end this feeling of entitlement in our lives? How do we end this feeling that we think that we need everything? How do we end it? Rest assured that Jesus and God are never going to let you down. That God is enough for our lives. And He's never going to leave you. In fact, you're not missing out on anything because God's never going to leave your side ever. Never in your life is He going to leave you. And He's telling us that we're not missing out on the things that we're owed. In fact, instead, we choose to trust that we'll always have things we need because God's never going to let us down. So here's the truth I want you guys to remember. When you find yourself slipping towards this entitlement, you have something to be grateful for. I'm going to say it again. You have something to be grateful for. You have the promise that God is never going to leave you. That He's never going to let you down. That He's never going to forsake you. That He'll always be with you. And that is something to be grateful for. What do we do with this? How do we keep our eyes off the things that we want and keep our eyes and focus on what we're supposed to be grateful for? For some of you guys, this simply comes by recognizing the entitlement in your life. It means catching those thoughts that cross your mind, where you think about where you deserve something that someone else has. That it means recognizing that sometimes you're going to feel that feeling. And that you're owed something in life, and instead of thinking that you're owed it, turning and thinking about everything that you do have. And you ask yourself this question, do I just want this, or do I think I deserve it? That question will help us recognize the entitlement in our lives. Once you recognize that, I think it's easy for us to make the choice to be grateful. In other words, you have to choose to be content with what you have. Contentment is the opposite of entitlement. Remember last week we talked about recognizing that we all have something that matters to God? Well, contentment takes this idea one step further. Instead, we are grateful for what God has in our lives. Contentment asks us to be happy with where we are now. And to be grateful for things we have, just as they are. And contentment helps us to avoid entitlement. Whenever me and Rebecca, over Thanksgiving, went down to Guatemala, we had the opportunity to deliver some food baskets. And while we were there, we realized the fact that we have a lot of stuff. We have a lot more than a lot of different people. We delivered food to these people who are living off $1 a day, who may not know if they're going to get food for the entire week. And we got to bring this little bit of light into their lives. And for us coming back, it made us realize that we have a lot and that we should be content with what we have and we shouldn't want more and don't think we deserve more because we're better and we do all these things, but instead that we're content with what we have. Because we generously serve someone, we gained that new appreciation for our own life and everything we had in our life. And I don't know about you guys, but I think we need to adjust our mindsets to serving others and to where we give of ourselves so that we can be more content with what we do have. I also want to encourage you guys to do the same thing. Try it this week. Try at the end of each day, make a list. What am I grateful for today? Maybe it's your friends. Maybe it's your family. Maybe it's for something that you did today. Maybe it's for going through and being able to get McDonald's through a drive-thru. I challenge you guys to write down at the end of each day this week 5 things you're grateful for. It's not that hard. We have a lot of stuff we can be grateful for. Just sit there for a minute or two and think about 5 things that you are grateful for. And then pay attention to practicing gratitude towards those things that you do have. And I think it'll change your focus. And I think that you'll be surprised at how easy it is for us to fight off the entitlement whenever we think about the things that we do have instead of the things that we want and we think we deserve. Because after all, you have something to be grateful for. I'm going to pray. We're going to go into small groups, and I want you guys to think about this question whenever you go into small groups. What's one thing I have to be grateful for today? Let's pray. God, thank you for this day. Thank you for blessing us more than we could ever ask or imagine for. God, and I pray that we can be grateful for the things that we do have. That we can be grateful for everything that you've blessed us with, and we can be able to not grow entitled to the fact that we want this and we want that, but instead we can be content with what we do have. It's in your Son's name we pray. Amen. You're dismissed.